The city of Cairo awoke with its usual chorus. The call to prayer drifted over the rooftops as the Nile caught the first light of dawn. Amid the endless hum of traffic and market chatter, in a small house tucked between narrow alleys, Salma sat in her wooden chair by the window. Her fingers moved patiently, pulling soft yarn into loops. She had begun the blanket months ago, when her son Kareem announced that he and his wife Nadia were expecting a child. The thought of a tiny heartbeat, a new life in the family, had filled her chest with warmth she had not felt since her own children were small. Each evening, when the streets outside grew quieter, she worked. Her lamp cast a pool of light on the table as she created delicate patterns inspired by ancient motifs carved in the walls of Giza. She whispered blessings with every stitch, praying that her grandchild would sleep peacefully wrapped in this gift of love. It was not an easy task. Her eyes often tired, her hands ached, yet she carried on. Neighbors who passed by would sometimes pause to watch. One of them, old Hassan, once said with a smile, "That blanket will hold more love than a palace full of silk." She laughed softly at his words, but deep down, she believed them to be true. For Salma, it was not just a blanket. It was a memory in the making, a piece of her heart woven into something tangible. By the time the blanket was complete, it shone with vibrant colors. Shades of desert gold, Nile blue, and palm green wove together like the landscapes of Egypt itself. She folded it carefully, pressing it to her cheek, and imagined the weight of her grandchild within its warmth. Tomorrow, she thought, she would carry it to her son's home. Tomorrow, Kareem would see what his mother had created, and perhaps Nadia too would smile with gratitude. She closed her eyes, dreaming of that moment, unaware that her gift was about to lead her into pain she never expected. The morning sun glowed warmly across Cairo as Salma walked through the bustling streets. She carried a cloth bag over her arm, inside it the folded blanket she had worked on for so long. With every step, her heart fluttered with both pride and nervousness. Kareem lived in a newer part of the city, where modern apartments rose high above the old alleys. When Salma reached the building, she paused to catch her breath. A young boy at the entrance greeted her politely, holding the door open. She smiled, grateful for the small kindness, and made her way up the stairs. The door opened before she knocked twice. Kareem appeared, tall and handsome, his smile lighting up his mother's heart. "Mother," he said warmly, helping her inside. "Come, you must be tired." The flat smelled faintly of new furniture and Nadia's perfume. It was larger than her own home, brighter too, with polished tiles and soft rugs. Nadia emerged from the kitchen, her hair neatly tied, her expression polite but not warm. "Welcome, Salma," she said, her voice smooth, almost distant. Salma's hands tightened around the bag. She wanted to present the gift immediately, to place it in their arms with joy. But something about Nadia's coolness made her hesitate. Instead, she allowed Kareem to guide her to a seat. As they spoke of the baby soon to arrive, her eyes wandered to the cradle already prepared near the window. A soft white cover lay over it, clean and untouched. She thought of the blanket inside her bag and how much more meaning it carried than something bought from a store. Finally, she reached into the bag and unfolded the blanket. The colors gleamed under the afternoon light, intricate and full of life. She placed it gently on her lap and smiled. "I made this," she said softly, "for the child you are about to welcome." Kareem's eyes lit up, admiration clear in his gaze. He touched the fabric and murmured, "It is beautiful, mother." But Nadia's smile barely shifted. She said only, "Thank you, Salma," and excused herself back to the kitchen. Salma forced herself not to feel hurt. She told herself that perhaps Nadia was simply tired. After all, motherhood was not easy. She tried to focus on Kareem's approval, though a faint unease lingered in her chest. That unease would not leave her, for the day was not yet over. Later in the afternoon, Kareem left the flat to run an errand. Salma remained in the sitting room, sipping a cup of tea Nadia had served. The blanket still rested on the arm of the sofa, catching the light. She could not stop herself from glancing at it again and again. Voices drifted from the kitchen, muffled at first. She thought Nadia might be speaking on the telephone, but as she strained her ears, the words became clear. "Yes, it is handmade," Nadia's voice said sharply, "but it looks old-fashioned. Honestly, what will the neighbors think if they see us using it? I think it is better we keep it for the dog." The cup in Salma's hand trembled. Hot tea spilled onto her fingers, but she did not feel the sting. Her heart pounded so loudly she feared it might give her away. There was a silence, then a faint laugh. "Yes, the dog will make better use of it. It is too heavy for a baby anyway." Salma placed the cup down carefully, her breath unsteady. She sat frozen, her eyes fixed on the colorful blanket she had made with so much devotion. The fabric blurred before her eyes as tears threatened to fall. When Kareem returned, she smiled faintly, hiding the storm inside her. She spoke little, pretending to be tired, and soon excused herself. She did not take the blanket back, for that would expose what she had heard. Instead, she left it draped on the sofa, a silent witness to her pain. As she stepped into the street, Cairo's lively sounds felt distant, muffled by the echo of those cruel words. She walked home slowly, her heart heavier than the bag she now carried empty. Her small house felt colder that evening. Salma sat alone by the window, where she once worked on the blanket. Her chair creaked as she lowered herself into it, her hands idle for the first time in months. She tried to tell herself not to be hurt. She reminded herself that youth had little patience for tradition, that perhaps Nadia had not meant the words seriously. But the truth pierced deeper than excuses. She had poured her soul into that gift, and to hear it dismissed as fit for a dog was a wound no comfort could close. The neighbors noticed her quietness. Hassan knocked at her door, offering some fresh bread his wife had baked. She thanked him politely, but did not invite him in. After he left, she stared at the bread untouched, her appetite gone. As the hours passed, she sat in silence, listening to the distant hum of the city. Memories returned of when Kareem was a boy, when he too was wrapped in blankets she had sewn. She remembered his tiny hands clutching the edge of the fabric, the way he smiled when she sang him to sleep. Those memories only deepened her sorrow. At last, when the night grew too heavy, she whispered a prayer. "Ya Allah, guide my heart. Show me what to do." Her words floated into the quiet air, unanswered. Yet in her heart, a faint spark remained. A thought that perhaps her work still had meaning, if not for the family who had rejected it, then for someone else entirely. The next morning, Salma walked to the market. The stalls were alive with color, vendors calling out prices, the smell of spices and fresh bread filling the air. But she was not there to shop. She was searching for something different, something her heart had whispered in the night. At the far end of the market, near a row of dusty bookshops, stood a small building with faded paint. It was the Panti Asuhan, the orphanage, where children without families found shelter. Salma paused at the gate, listening to their laughter spill into the street. A woman greeted her at the entrance, her face kind and lined with years. She introduced herself as Sister Miriam, caretaker of the children. "Can I help you, my dear?" she asked. Salma smiled faintly. "Perhaps it is I who can help you." She explained how she used to make blankets, how she had time and skill to offer. Sister Miriam's eyes lit with gratitude. "The nights grow cold in Giza," she said. "The children would be blessed to have something warm." From that day forward, Salma began a new routine. Each evening, instead of sinking into sorrow, she picked up her needles once more. She gathered yarn from the market, often with the help of neighbors who donated what they could. Slowly, stitch by stitch, blankets began to form again. This time, she did not weave only for one child. She wove for many, each color chosen with care, each pattern holding prayers for strangers who would soon become part of her story. And as the weeks turned into months, the small spark in her heart began to glow once more. The day arrived when the first bundle of blankets was ready. Salma carried them to the orphanage, neatly folded in her basket. The children gathered eagerly as she entered, their curious eyes wide. Sister Miriam spread one of the blankets across a small bed. The fabric glowed with colors of the Nile and desert sands. A little boy reached out to touch it, his face breaking into a smile. "Do you like it?" Salma asked gently. He nodded, clutching the corner of the blanket to his cheek. One by one, the children wrapped themselves in the warmth she had created. Laughter filled the room, a music far sweeter than any praise she could have imagined. Tears pricked her eyes, not of sorrow but of joy. She felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Here, in this place, her work was valued. The children did not care if it was modern or old-fashioned. To them, it was love, pure and simple. Word spread quickly in the neighborhood. People began donating yarn, fabric, and even their own hands to help her work. Soon, Salma was no longer alone in her mission. She became known as the grandmother of the orphanage, her small home transformed into a workshop of hope. And yet, though her days filled with purpose, one corner of her heart still ached. She had not forgotten Nadia's words, nor the blanket left behind in silence. One afternoon, as Salma left the market with yarn in her basket, she heard a familiar voice. Karim was standing near a cafe, speaking with a friend. His face brightened as he saw her. "Mother," he said warmly, embracing her. "I have missed you. Why have you not visited?" She smiled faintly, hiding her pain. "I have been busy." He glanced at the basket in her hand. "Still working on your blankets?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Yes. But now they go to the children who need them most." Karim's brow furrowed. "The orphanage?" She gave no answer, but the truth was plain. Karim felt a pang in his chest. He remembered the blanket she had given them, how radiant her face had been when she presented it. Guilt stirred within him, though he did not yet understand why. That night, Karim mentioned the encounter to Nadia. She shrugged. "She has found something to keep herself busy. It is better that way." But her tone lacked conviction. Karim could not shake the feeling that something important had been lost. Within months, Cairo was whispering about Salma. Markets spoke of the old woman who made blankets for children. Mosques praised her generosity. Merchants offered her discounts, saying, "It is for the little ones, is it not?" One day, an article appeared in a local paper, featuring her story. A photograph showed her surrounded by smiling children, each wrapped in her work. The headline read, "A grandmother's gift to the forgotten." The paper found its way to Karim's desk at work. He read the words slowly, shame burning in his chest. He had seen the pride in his mother's eyes that day, but he had allowed her gift to be treated with indifference. When he brought the newspaper home, Nadia glanced at it and fell silent. For the first time, she felt the sting of her careless words. She remembered the softness of the blanket, the way it had glowed in the afternoon light. She had dismissed it as outdated, but now the city itself called it beautiful. Neither of them spoke of it, but the silence between them was heavy. One evening, Karim arrived at his mother's home, Nadia walking beside him. They found her sitting by the window, a half-finished blanket on her lap. She looked up in surprise as they entered. "Mother," Karim began, his voice unsteady, "we have come to see you." She nodded, offering them tea, though her movements were slower than before. Nadia's eyes fell on the yarn scattered across the table, the countless hours of devotion visible in every stitch. For the first time, she saw the work not as something old, but as something timeless. Karim cleared his throat. "We read about you in the paper. The whole city speaks of what you have done." His voice faltered. We are proud of you." Salma smiled faintly, but did not answer. She continued her stitching, the rhythm steady, her heart guarded. Nadia swallowed hard. She wanted to speak, to undo the words she had once said. But the moment passed, and silence stretched between them. They left not long after, carrying their regret like a shadow. Years passed, and Salma's name became known far beyond her street. The orphanage thrived, its children growing strong beneath the warmth of her blankets. Neighbors and strangers alike called her a mother to many, her kindness woven into the fabric of Cairo itself. Karim and Nadia often visited, bringing their own child. The little one laughed and played among the children of the orphanage, never knowing the story of the first blanket. In the corner of Kareem's home, untouched and folded neatly, lay that very blanket. Nadia had never dared to discard it. Sometimes, when she looked at it, she felt the weight of her mistake pressing heavily upon her. But in Salma's heart, the wound had slowly healed. She had found purpose beyond disappointment, love beyond rejection. Her blankets had wrapped not only children, but an entire city in warmth. And though the blanket she had made for her first grandchild never fulfilled its intended destiny, it had sparked something greater. It had shown her that even when love is dismissed, it can still change the world. The streets of Cairo would always remember the grandmother who turned sorrow into hope, one stitch at a time.